Thank you all so much for coming today and taking some time out of your Saturday to be here. Appreciate that. Today I'm going to be talking to you about balance and different aspects of that, including how balance is useful in the studio, when DJing, a little bit of mindfulness, which I start with. And at any point, if you have any questions, just please put your hand up. It's meant to be interactive and not too formal, so just go ahead if you want to add or ask me a question. So here we go. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in England, near Brighton, and I started DJing before producing, but then kind of loved music so much, and then really wanted to learn to make it as well. I moved from London to Berlin 8 years ago now, long time. I connected with lots of great people here and found myself at this amazing studios. My studio is here in Riverside. And slowly but surely got myself to where I am today, which I'm very proud and grateful to be here. My first show internationally was in Italy and then Watergate here. And now I'm very happy to have quite a big team of people and a growing career, and I'm going to share some of my secrets with you today of how I got here. So as we said, we're going to explore these 3 different chapters. The first one, balance of the mind. The second of the music, talking about some technical parts in the studio, but also just general tips and tricks for time management and how to be a better producer and DJ. And then the last part is going to be about decisions, so how to make decisions with your music career and know when to do certain things in your career, like get different team members or release music, how often to release, where to release, how to release. So the first one is the mind. I wanted to start with opening this question. How many decisions do you think we make a day on average? Does anyone have an idea? If you had to guess a blind number. Anyone? 52? Might need to be a little bit higher, little clue, but anyone else? 150? 150?
10,000.
10,000 is a bit closer, actually. Lots of studies which have been shared on many different platforms, so I can't quote one source, say that we make up to 35,000 decisions per day, even if there are tiny ones like, which way to walk or, what to dress that day. We make so many decisions, and it's actually a really important process as a DJ and producer as well, as you probably all know. We're faced with so many decisions in our career, and I think the key to be able to make good decisions is by having balance and a healthy lifestyle. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. So why is a balanced life and mind important? Well, of course, quite obvious reasons, like you can have more focus and more clarity. You can make better decisions, be more creative. I find that, I'm most creative when I'm really relaxed, when I've slept well, and when there's not a load of other stuff in my mind. So that also helps me be present, and being present obviously allows you to really focus on what you're actually doing at that moment and not think about your plans later or what you did last night or what you ate for breakfast. You can feel happier and more grateful, and I'm not sure if any of you producers really have had this experience when, if you're really happy in the studio, usually you make good music, or if you feel any sort of emotion quite strongly, I think that can help you be inspired and help you to make music well. So having a clear, balanced life and mind can just help you so much with your music making process. And I think that also comes down to the tiny decisions we make in the studio. And that's also about the decisions we make when DJing. And I'm going to go into those in more detail later. So you also have more energy, less stress levels, And yeah, it's a no-brainer to why we feel better when we're living a more balanced life. Ways to achieve balance, and I'm not sure if you all do something already, but I'm going to share a little bit about my routine and my work week and my work week in the studio, so you understand how I structure my time and how I make sure I'm quite productive. So basically, I think it's very important to get enough sleep. Sleep is super important. And there's so many studies worldwide that show and prove that if you get 8 hours of sleep or thereabouts a night, obviously you're going to be performing so much better, and you're going to be happier and more relaxed, and it's just going to benefit your life completely, which is difficult in the music industry, let's be honest, with late set times and having to be up late to go and see your favorite producers and DJs. But I think just trying to be sensible about that. So if you have one late night, don't have plans the night surrounding that, so you try and stay in a healthy rhythm. I have quite a long morning routine where I'll wake up and first thing is coffee. But after that, it's I do meditate every morning, even if it's only if I'm really rushed and I don't have much time, which I try not to be, I'll do at least 5 minutes. And really 5 minutes is really not much in the grand scheme of the day. So I highly recommend that. My life's really changed since I started doing that. And I feel like I can be so much more creative because my mind's just more clear. So yeah, it's really important to make time for yourself every day, and that also spreads into the week as well. How I think it spreads into the week is we all get asked, I'm sure you all do as well, so many plans, people asking you to meet up every night. I think it's important to kind of be very specific about having a couple of nights to yourself, and especially in the summer when the sun's out, not going overboard and being back to back with plans, so that you can really focus on what you want to achieve, and that is becoming a successful DJ and producer. So always have that as your main goal, obviously to live life as well, but it's a very social industry, so I think it's harder to be more disciplined when it comes to that, because we get invited to lots of events, or many different people are playing. So that's an important one for me. Movement, I think, is super important. If you can incorporate more into your day, that's great. So just walking instead of getting on a train, or if you can do some exercise, even better, or cycling. That really helps me. Almost every morning in the week, I do a short HIIT workout. And for me, that just gets any anxiety or stress out of my body. And it means that along with the short meditation, I'm good to go. And by the time I get to the studio, I'm really, hopefully, calm. Yeah, I started that and I've never looked back since. So little tip as well, if you are interested, I use a free app called Insight Timer, and that's really good. Love it. So that's how I start my morning every day. You might be like, why are you showing me this calendar? What the hell is that? I'm meant to be at a music masterclass. But this has actually been key for me, and it has revolutionized my life. I wouldn't call myself unorganized, but I think being creative and in our industries, it's really easy to just have the week to yourself and be like, oh, I'll go to the studio one day and the other day I'll look for music. I might go to a record store. But, there's so many distractions that if you don't really organize your time, you won't achieve what you want to achieve. And I think one thing about myself and my workflow is, I can make music at quite a fast and good volume, and it's great. It's meant that my release schedule is now full for the next year, and I can kind of actually sit back and think, what else do I do now? So bulletproof time management, and this is what Elon Musk and many leaders use, but there's no reason why creatives can't use it as well, because it will help you no end. So what I do, and I'm sure some of you already do this, is I have different colors for different activities. So I will always like time block my week ahead like this before the week started. So I'll take maybe an hour on a Sunday, or, you know, when I'm traveling, which isn't great, but I make time to do this. And so I'll make sure I have some mindfulness stuff in there, you know, colors for admin stuff, alone time, social time, studio time, digging music time, inspiration meetup time, you know, just anything that kind of like brings you joy, peace, happiness, but also allows you to get all of your work done. That will really, really help you. I promise you, if you start doing this for like 1 month, you'll see your output is much higher. Yeah?
My question is, working?
It sounds off.
Sounds off?
No? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, now it's working. So my question is about resilience. And I don't know if it's part of your presentation, but sometimes I feel like it's also a hard part if you're like stacking habits and you're on a good way on improving things. But then suddenly, I don't know, you have a rough time, maybe a longer disease or something like this. And what is like the best way to get in your routine again? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it's like so hard because you feel like, damn, I skipped something twice and then another week of not doing it. And then sometimes it's really hard to really go because you feel so many things now I have to do. I have to catch up on the time I lost. And so that's sometimes really a hard thing on how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. Thanks for asking. And this comes up for me a lot because, you know, I go on tour and I especially say go to the US for 2-3 weeks. Don't work out at all. I eat a lot of unhealthy food. My mind's all over the place. I'm jet lagged, exhausted. I think number one is like, don't be too hard on yourself ever. So never be like beating yourself up that you haven't done something or you haven't organized your week. Like the key is really being able to transform that and have the power in your mind to be like, you don't need to wait for the next day. You don't need to wait for the next Monday or week. You can do that immediately. You can just say, well, look, I'm just going to start now. And yeah, things that can help with if you do have those negative thoughts in your mind of like, oh, you know, haven't done this. Try journaling, try writing it all out, and try, you know, exercising and doing some of the tools that I just spoke about. And yeah, do understand that totally can be difficult when things get out. But yeah, just take that power in your mind to just get back to it.
But yeah, I understand. Often it's the hard part. You are so hard on yourself. That's why you keep on struggling. But yeah, if you're more like, yeah, I can do it again. Yeah, I guess it's way easier because you can always start again. And if you're not so hard on yourself, yeah, it's easier to come and flow again. So
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone's human. Everyone makes these kind of circular habitual routines, so swinging out of things and swinging back in. And it's just no judgment. Don't judge yourself, you know. So that's the key.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, having a calendar like this will help you prioritize. And, you know, the busier that you get in your music career, the less time you'll have and the more you'll be struggling with traveling a lot, different time zones. And there are lots of different tasks as well that come with music. You know, it's not just making music or preparing for a gig. There's the whole load of other, you know, marketing, emails, getting pre-masters to a mastering engineer, all of these things. So this will really help. And what we focus on grows. So you've got to have an aim. You've got to put your focus in and optimize your time to get there. So now we come to the music part. I'm sure that most people are here for this. So Balance Productions. How many of you are actually music producers right now? So who, or want to be? So who is this relevant to? Yeah? Okay, great. Quite a lot of you. And who are DJs or aspiring DJs? Yeah, everyone as well. Cool. Sounds good. So yes, firstly, choosing the right elements. how to decide what to use in a track. I find this so challenging, and it's been I think that if you can master this, all the other skills come, right? Because the longer you do it, the longer you understand how EQ works, how all the plugins can help you, and how a track is built and arranged. However, I think the hardest thing about being a producer, not only for myself, but generally, is being able to like ditch elements and be like, no, this isn't good. Like, I'm just going to go with these 3 things and make a track out of it. I think, you've all heard before that simplicity is key in everything, especially art and especially music. I, as you know, make techno, so my tracks are very simple. And honestly, I think the more simple my tracks are, the better they are, and usually the better they do. So, that simplicity is really hard to achieve. I know that melodic music is less simple because there's more melodies and there's more things going on and layers. But when it comes to deciding what to use, I think having a really balanced mind and being relaxed and in a good, healthy space will really help you to kind of make these micro decisions, I call it, of which elements to use, whether they're samples or whether you use a piece of gear. And that's even also a decision in itself. Like, what should I do? How should I build my studio? Or, what should I start with today? There's loads of questions that you're faced with as a producer. And therefore, I think there is this FOBO, which is fear of a better option. We've all been there, like thousands of snares, and you're just sitting there like looking for the right one, and you could just waste an hour on that. We're all busy people. We don't have like days and days and weeks to produce a track. So my like whole thinking with this is like, if I hear something that sounds good, boom, that's it. Like, I don't need to keep listening for a better option. Because at the end of the day, I mean, maybe it's slightly different when it's the main element of the track, when it's a synth line. But still, I still feel that if you're like, oh no, maybe if I change this note, it might sound better. Like, you're just going to end up with this project open for weeks, and maybe it's never even going to be a finished track in the end. So I really have some tips on how to do that coming next. And yeah, a lot of it is about using your intuition and just going with your gut of like, okay, this sounds good. I'm trusting myself. I'm not, having a reference track can be good, but sometimes we then focus too much on the reference track of, oh, what did so-and-so do in this track? Oh, maybe this snare isn't right in the end. But I actually try not to use reference tracks anymore, because I think it's useful when you're learning, when you're right at the beginning stage. But once you've kind of learned enough of the skills yourself, I think it's really good to just go with, your own sound and what comes out for you in the studio. And then I think you'll make better decisions as well of like which elements to use, and being able to go with your gut is just really important in all aspects of life, but definitely in the studio as well, because in a oversaturated world, I've forgotten the exact figure now, but I think it's something like 600,000 or 60,000, one of them, pieces of music come out each week now. And, you need to be making something that still sounds different, which is really tough. But if you're going to have a reference and go with that, trying to make things sound like what you've heard, you're not going to sound that different, of course, and you're going to be kind of ignoring your authenticity. So try and come into the studio in a balanced manner and make very quick decisions. The first time you hear a good sample, if you're looking for samples in Ableton or Logic, go with that sample. Maybe you can look a tiny bit more, but don't spend more than like a minute looking for a snare. That's presuming you've organized your samples, which is also important. I think having everything in folders where you can like really look for a good clap, or if you're not using hardware, that is. So yes, if you really can't decide what to use, you can literally flip a coin. And even if you get the wrong side of the coin, that's going to show you that actually you preferred the other snare. Let's use the snare as an example. And what you can do with the other sounds that you kind of liked, and that's also the same, of course, if you have a VST open and you're playing around with melodies or drums in like the Roland Cloud 909 VST or a different drum, real-life hardware or software machine. What I do is if I do find a sound that I like or create a sound I like, I will store that for later. And again, just being organized with your music samples and creating your own sample bank so that you can come back to this and save time, be more efficient. And I think this is an amazing idea. So if you come across more than one element you like and you're struggling to decide what to use, try and go with your gut. If you're still really undecided and you're spending too much time on it, you can literally do something like flip a coin. Or if you have a watch, you can look if the second hand is on the right-hand side of the clock. You go with one option. If it's on the left-hand side, you go with the other option. And always save the option you like but didn't use in an organized sample bank. Because let's face it, every time we make a track, there's like probably 5 different ideas in one, unless we can make it really nice and simple. And I'm going to talk to you about how I arrange and how I kind of filter out different ideas within one track in a minute as well. So, yeah, does anyone have any questions on what I've just said or anything to add? Nope. Okay. So yeah, you might be wondering why I've got a pizza and sushi on the left-hand side, but there is a theory called explore or exploit trade-off. And this is like actually part of computer science and psychology. So basically, if, for example, you can compare this to something that's not in music, like choosing which restaurant to go to. And some people will be like, well, I'll choose the safe option and I'll go somewhere I know is good. I can be efficient. It's already tested. I know I like that pizza. I'm going to go there. I don't want any risks tonight because I'm not here for long and I, can't be bothered to have something that I don't like today. Or the other person, and some people prefer these options more than others, is, okay, I'm going to go for the explore, sorry. So I'm going to go to a new restaurant I've never tried. I'm going to try and find something I like. I'm feeling in that mood. And I'm sure maybe I can find something I like. Maybe I won't like it, but let's see. That's why I've put this in here, because basically I think this completely directly compares to music. And it's again about balance, because you can either try something new in the studio or for your DJ sets, or you can know what's already good and what's already working. Well, a good question is, how much time do you have? Do you have like a whole week where you can make music? Then maybe you can explore. You can look through all different kind of instruments and see what can come out. You can do some sound design from scratch and save some presets of your own. I definitely think you need time to do this exploration in the beginning of your career to kind of come up with that sound that you want to put out into the world. But a lot of the time, I personally don't have that much time to explore anymore. So a lot of the time, I am exploiting my own last sounds that I used to use before that I know work well. So, for example, I have a hi-hat that I really like. I recorded it with my analog rhythm a long time ago, and I just love it. It's got a little bit of distortion. It feels very slightly analog. So why would I just keep looking for a different hi-hat every time I make a track, So I've optimized part of my studio process, and I don't mind using the same hi-hat in all my productions. And actually, that's probably a good thing, because you can obviously go for a classic 909 or a classic hat sound, but maybe the hi-hat is just something recognizable that people actually hear in my tracks. I'm not saying I use that for every single track, because I don't, but I would say about 70% actually. So And it's crazy how recognizable even the tiniest sound can be in music. So I would say find some go-to sounds that you've explored. You've had the time, you've explored, you've found some go-to sounds, whether that's a snare, claps, hats. Maybe it's like the sound that you create synth lines with. It can be absolutely anything. And then you can save those. I'm using Ableton. I'm not sure what anyone else is using here. Probably a lot of you are using Ableton. You can save those as the kind of presets into your Ableton and then just instantly like get them and grab them in. As you probably know, you can even drag full tracks from other projects into your current project. And you can even save a template with that hi-hat already arranged. You can really just go as far as you want into optimizing your workflow so that, when you come in, you can focus on maybe a completely new, you can focus on exploring more like a synth or a vocal. And this is like kind of like thinking like a computer. This is how computer works as well. I think that's quite a good tip. I'm just going to talk a bit about how I produce, and maybe this can inspire you as well. I am always in the studio at the same time every day. I have a routine, and it helps me with that balance and that calmness. Other people might be different. You might be someone who likes to change your times, but I think having a routine and having different, having a solid structure with when and how you make music or look for music for DJ sets is really useful. So I'm quite a fast producer. I'm usually writing 1 track a day, sometimes 2. Like on yesterday, I wrote 2 tracks. I mean, they're of course not finished, but they're 2 creative ideas completely arranged. And then I will basically, what I do is, as I said before, think simplicity is key. So I'll make an idea, and sometimes that might have 4 or 5 elements or hooks in it. And what I believe, enables me to write that track that can hopefully get 1 million streams on Spotify or all these things that we can measure success with, is I come back to it every single morning. I come into the studio, I open the projects that I've been doing recently, and I think, what can I take out? And I take out things one by one until I'm left with, this will be a process over about 3 to 5 days. And then at the end of opening it up 3 to 5 times, I've now got a more stripped back version of what I originally made. And for me, that's it's optimizing. So I'm not sitting there same day after having listened to it 50 times thinking, how can I make this more simple? I allocate 1 hour the next day in the studio in the morning to go back through the other sessions that I've been doing and strip them back. And what I think that helps with as well is loads of things. Firstly, it helps you to listen to a whole bunch of things you've made lately, and it's okay if it's only 1 track. I've been making music for 8 years. I've definitely done my 10,000 hours, so you don't have to be super fast and doing an idea a day. But when you come in and you listen to the different ideas you've been working on, comparing them can also help you create some consistency between them so that you can kind of build your own sound. And I think being able to strip ideas back and having this uncognitive bias that we create, when we choose a decision, we don't want to say, oh no, actually I don't like that decision I made yesterday, because we don't like being kind of wrong, and this also plays out in our own minds. So when you come in, when you open a project and your aim is to strip it back and make it more simple, you have to kind of be ruthless and just pretend that you didn't make it, right? If this was someone else's track and you're listening to it, what would you suggest them to remove to make it more simple? I think this is a big challenge that a lot of producers face is, how to make music more simple. So that can help. I keep the technical part, I keep the really fine mixing separate to my creative process. So I might mix a little bit on the go, but I'm mostly doing the creativity part first, and I'm producing in arrangement view only. So a lot of people will build up a full loop and then arrange it. I actually don't do that. I produce as I go. I produce the arrangement as I go. So some people recommend you don't do that. I recommend you do that because it will already help you to arrange the track, to see what else you need. And I just find it more natural and faster. So I think the live view is really cool in Ableton. However, I think to actually arrange, I prefer the arrangement view. So I progress the track as I go. It tells a better story. I don't start with a for loop and produce backwards. That's like kind of the general way that I'm producing. So facing creative blocks, and this comes with being balanced. Knowing when to take an extended break, and this kind of probably comes onto what you were asking me earlier as well. Like, if it's really not working for you in the studio and you're just not inspired, I think there's two things that you can do. You can either work on, doing things like creating samples for yourself. Like, if you have any hardware, that could be just recording a ton of stuff. But not leaving it as huge recordings, like chop each sample and organize it into different drum folders or synths or whatever you're looking for at that time. And you can organize these for future projects so that exploiting idea that I talked about earlier is a lot easier and quicker. You can create new racks, tools, and default sessions. You can research new VSTs or instruments. You can be really experimental. So if your usual genre isn't working, just completely break it up, do a broken beat or do something ambient, or, there's loads of things we can do with other genres of music. And this can be really helpful if you end up getting a publishing agent, for example, who can maybe use your music for adverts or film and TV. So collaborate is a good way to kind of defeat creative blocks, because usually that other person will push you through it or challenge you or come up with something that you weren't expecting. And then, meditating and journaling. And I have read The Artist's Way and done the exercises from this book several times. I would highly recommend it. It's basically just, the theory is from the book, just kind of dumping whatever is in your mind onto paper in the morning. It's not really journaling. It's literally like whatever comes into your brain, just write it on a piece of paper with the thought that this will clear your mind and get you back to creativity. So if all of that fails and maybe you're not even feeling inspired enough to just record or find samples, it can also be looking for samples online or looking at this website, who sampled who, and going through, fun, creative ways that other people have made music. But if it really doesn't go to plan, don't be worried, take an extended break. And usually for me, this won't just work in a day. So I'll have to say, okay, it's really not working. I'm not feeling good about this. So I'm going to not make music for 1 week or 2 weeks or, whatever feels like a good extended break to you. And then in that time, do all the activities we spoke about earlier, get out, be social, have some alone time. And then hopefully when you come back in, you'll be inspired and can get back to making music. So I think it's important to know how to work through all of this. So talking a bit more about DJing now. And that's DJing or live sets. I have a specific opinion when it comes to how to kind of order and structure a set when you're in a club and playing live. And this is my opinion. People think very differently, but all the sets that I kind of play are more kind of a journey. So, and I think personally that's really interesting, even if you're playing more stripped back techno music or it can still be a slight journey. So I think contrast captures people. So it's all about like within the set, if you have like a super melodic or super airy track for like 15, 20 minutes, maybe then like hit them back with, you know, okay, now we're going into the darker like vibe, and like, okay, now it's like getting a bit more serious. If it's like just airy all the way through, you know, 2 hours later, everyone's like, oh, great, you know, it's not very fun anymore. Yeah, I think variety is the spice of life, and you'll see my sets go quite up and down. They have a lot of energy, but then I also kind of look at the crowd and see when they're like feeling that they could just do with a 30-second break, like, and just, you know, like a longer break in the track. So I think I personally recommend having sets that have a lot of variety, take people on a journey. Maybe an unpopular opinion at the moment, which I threw in here anyway. Some people are playing like a ton of edits of like other people's tracks, you know, from 10 years ago, these 90s classics and stuff, which are really cool, but maybe in a balance with other tracks, right? So sometimes I've gone to watch people lately and it's been like, you know, Madonna after this, after that, a Rihanna edit, like even in techno. And then, you know, by the like fourth or fifth one, I'm like, okay, but where's your artistic expression? Yeah, all of these other people did amazing work, but you know, I do play edits myself, so I'm not like hating on them, but like just in like a pinch of salt, you know, like just maybe 1 or 2 per set. And that's how I think about when selecting what music to play in the set. I think it's really important to, like only choose stuff that you really love yourself, and choose a variety of stuff. So I like to include classics in my sets because I love techno music that was made like 15, 20 years ago, but I don't only play that, obviously. And again, it's the same. I don't oversaturate the dance floor with just classics. So I'll play some classics, some new tracks, some of my own music, maybe 1 or 2 edits, and combining all of that, it's a real musical journey. And it also, I think, shows music knowledge as well. I don't recommend just playing new tracks that you find, you know, especially online. It's good to show some of your musical knowledge in there, right? What track do you know from like 1993 that you love, that you've digged endlessly for? You've been to maybe like a record shop and you've like burned a few vinyl to digital, or you know this one track from a long time ago, even if it was obviously really popular. I think it's good to include those because, yeah, a lot of people won't know those tracks, and it's always fun to discover something new for everyone else as well. So dig deep. A little bit about my music digging, I guess, would be helpful. Question?
Yeah. It's about the edits. So if I understood it correctly, it's more about like the super mainstream tracks or tracks like everybody knows. How is your opinion on tracks like which are like more not super well known, but you feel like you would love to play it, but you have to change the thing, like to make it more suiting in your set? Because sometimes you have like elements in a track which are super cool, but maybe the drop is not maybe techno enough, so you add something or a bass line to make it more into your style.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it shows you're a talented producer if you're able to like listen to an older track and be like, oh, if only the break was a little bit like this, I'm gonna edit it a bit. That's really cool. My point was more, edits are great, but and this is a personal opinion, so it's completely different for other people. I don't believe there's as much artistic expression if you play like most of your set with just edits, because this is obviously music that someone else like came up with, and of course you can edit it and remix it and it'd be more your thing, and that's also creative. But my point was mainly like I think it's nicer to kind of use them in balance with your own music or new music that's out, or like, you know, some like classic techno or house tracks, you know. So that was kind of my point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also again about balance.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so it's all about balance there in DJ sets as well. And of course, live sets. I don't know if anyone is playing live, but that's amazing because you can really kind of like tailor that hour. It's shorter than a DJ set, and you can take so much time to really sculpt that full hour and be taking people on exactly the right journey, which is different to a DJ because, you know, sometimes we are like just seeing what comes out, but depends what sort of live set you're playing as well. So, but yeah. Yeah, so how I DJ and dig for music. Just to give you some insight, I use Evernote because, again, I'm trying to kind of have lots of processes around my music making because I used to not, and then I would find that I would just do too many tasks at the same time or not like note things down properly, and I'd lose things and not understand where they were. So I use Evernote, a program, and basically I have it open on my laptop, and anytime I'm doing anything, I usually have like SoundCloud or YouTube or Spotify open. Usually, actually, I find YouTube a lot better for digging for music, and then I'm always noting the tracks down in my note system. And then before every gig, I download and buy the music that I have found that week or that month. And I'm constantly storing new music. And I organize these into different folders, but then I also have some like general folders of like great openers, great like 90s techno, you know, and then when I'm playing a set and I want to be spontaneous, I can easily find what I like and pull that out. So yeah, I'm using 3 decks to mix and remix on the fly. And what I do is also this balance part is sometimes I combine melodies over the top of more kind of stripped back tracks. So then you're kind of like playing with tracks on the fly and creating something new and seeing what that sounds like, almost like remixing. And yeah, that's how I dig and DJ and dig for music. Obviously, I go to record stores here in Berlin as well. There's so many good ones. And I do rip those to digital because obviously it's really tough to play vinyl these days. I wish it was easier, but it's, you know, it's so tough with the traveling to carry around so much vinyl. So yeah, that's how I am, DJing. Yep.
Yeah, when it comes to organizing your tracks, maybe preparing tracks to mix together, do you consider the key, the musical note of it? Because obviously if you mix vocals or melodies together and they don't match, that's not going to sound good. So is that part of your organizing as well?
I think it used to be, but now I just kind of do that as I go along. So like the best tip I think would be to like just really know your music, and then in the end you shouldn't, like in the beginning for sure, having the key indication is great because it helps you to learn what it sounds like when it's in key and out of key. But you know, after some time DJing, that should be something that can come natural to you as well. So when you're playing a track out, you might have this other melody in your head, and then you just know that one will fit with what you're playing. So I actually do it quite spontaneously, but I make sure everything's organized in terms of I might have a folder of like more melodic techno tracks, and then I have one folder that's like just straight like beats and grooves, and then I'll know that, hey, maybe I'll grab a melody and to go over the top of this one. But that's what I find fun about DJing, to kind of have that spontaneous moment. So I don't organize exactly how that will work beforehand, but I do structure it so that it's easy for me. Yeah.
I see. But you really have to know your material, and so you have to do your sort of preparation in that regard.
Yeah, and a tip with that, I mean, I'm sure lots of people have their own ways to do this, but I will download, say, 20 or 30 new tracks or whatever it is. And then, you can still put music on your phone. It's so old school. But I actually still connect my iPhone and transfer music. And then I listen to it every day. I love playing and listening to techno, no matter what time it is, even though some people are like, oh, it's 8 a.m. I don't care. But
Neighbors problem.
yeah. Neighbors issues. But yeah, so make sure you know your music. Take the time to not just buy it right before your gig, but 1 week before, get it, download it, listen to it, and then have these tracks that are a bit more unknown. Like not everyone has them, but you have them and they work well. And then you kind of, after like many hours and years of DJing, you start to remember, like sometimes there is like one track that appears often in my DJ sets and I know what it goes with and how the crowd reacts and stuff like that. So you can definitely, knowing your music is, the key to being a good DJ. Yeah, as we all know. So the last part comes on to, and I did forget to say something about in the studio. Yeah?
A quick question about the last topic. I've been thinking about, do you approach live set to more in the same vibe of like DJing, reading the crowd, or is this your concert that people are coming to see that you prepared? Which side do you prefer, or do you change this at all?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because I am actually working on a live set now myself as well. And it's endless things to think about. It's really tough. I think for live, there's two things you can do. As you said, you can be this kind of like person that has this 1 hour of, all of your own music. It's not a hybrid setup and you just play it in the same order every time, or not play it, but you're, live performing it in the same order every time. And then there's the people that fully improvise and might even have like modular gear or different hardware and just kind of find something they like and just play it. And I think the beauty and magic comes when you can combine both and therefore take a live set slightly more like a DJ set where, you look at the crowd and you think, well, are they going to like that track of mine that I'm going to perform next? Or do I think that they might, just want to stay on this for a bit longer? What the kind of theory I'm going to take is I will have some of my own tracks, obviously mostly in the live set, but then I'm not going to be strict on myself on how I move from track to track or if the crowd really need a breakdown and a ton of drums and they're super high energy and I want to do like a random snare build up and, put a ton of white noise in and make people go crazy, then I think that as a live artist, you should still do that. Trying to find the mix between it both, but still playing obviously your own tracks and performing your own tracks, but reading the crowd still and taking them on a journey. And if you maybe this also is about the setup. So maybe one synth you've stored all your patches in for your tracks and that's your synth to kind of play your own music. Maybe having another synth or drum machine to the right, which is purely for those spontaneous moments of like, okay, now I'm actually going to just like jam and see what happens. I think that's where a lot of creativity comes in those moments. So I think that would be really, really great. Good way to tackle it.
Cool, thank you.
No worries. So the last part we've talked about balance of the mind, balance music and DJ sets. The last part I want to talk about are decisions. Mostly about releasing music. And this also relates to when to do a good mix for a DJ or when to play big gigs and stuff like that. So one of the main things, it's quite conflicted and it does depend which genre you're in, because in pop, some people are releasing every single week. And yes, it's great for the algorithm. You might get more streams on Spotify and you might get into a playlist easier, but still in the electronic music world, and if that's where you're going, it's good to not oversaturate your releases, because it's not that yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, people can get a little bit bored, and you do want to create a bit of excitement and kind of hype around your releases. So there's certain times of the year that are great to release in and certain times that aren't. Unfortunately, it means everyone's fighting for the times that are good to release in, which are, you know, spring just before summer, before the festivals, just before ADE in October is a really good time. And finish of the year is a really good time as well. Start of the year, people are all over the place and kind of off. August, don't ever release in August or before August, because again, people won't like listen to your music. However, saying that, I did have a really, really strong release in January once, and I wonder if that was actually because not many people were releasing at that time. So it can be positive for you, but in general, I wouldn't risk it. So try and stay to times which we all know are better to release in. You need to plan this carefully, and this is something that a team can help with more down the line, so you can focus on music. But yeah, I would say don't release more often than once every 6 to 8 weeks. At a minimum, a lot of people say once every 3 months if you're doing a full EP. So yeah, that's kind of my beliefs on that. And I think it's great to balance different releases. So for myself, my personal journey, I have a slightly more, I guess it is big room commercial style, like released on drum code and stuff like that. But my sound that I'm loving right now is a bit more UK, a bit more breakbeat, and yeah, it wouldn't be on drum code. It would be on a label such as like R&S Records or, you know, different labels like that. And what I think is really important is to not go and having balance with that, basically. So if I'm going to put out a release that's like slightly more commercial, you know, this is great because it will give me bigger exposure, but then maybe the next release is one that's kind of a bit more experimental and a bit more like the direction that I now want to take. So think big and small with this, with labels, and think of it as stepping stones. So you might not be able to get to your dream label right away, but what did the DJs that released on there now, where did they release before? And what other labels are more like them but smaller? So you can look at it like stepping stones, and if you get a release on a great smaller label, that's also cool. Some have really good credit and really good profiles, so that can help you to kind of step up in the world and get to these bigger labels or to your dream label. It doesn't have to be a big label. A mistake I made in my career was definitely going for what I was offered without being stricter on myself and saying no. It might take you more time to get there, but I really do think that there is a lot of credit in having the patience and the self-belief to turning things down when it's not 100% where you want to go sound-wise, because I think, honestly, the worst thing that can happen to your career when releasing music is that you put it out on a label that you don't really love. And then what will happen, and it is really sad that this is how it happens, but those labels that you do want to release on, if they don't like that label you released on already, they're not going to look at you. So it's really important, and it's so hard to reinvent yourself. So at the beginning of your career, take your time. You don't have to rush. And if you don't get that right away, then it's worth waiting out, definitely. So yeah, consistency is key here. If you put out one great release and then not another one for a year, you know, you're not really going to move up the ladder too much or get those gigs that you maybe really want. So I think it's worth, if you're, you know, just starting out your journey, it's worth making a bulk of music or trying to make 2 to 3 releases and getting those lined up so that you can really feel the benefits of that. When you're releasing consistently, you can grow your fan base, and then they'll be looking forward to the next release and knowing that you're going to come up with something new. So yeah, that's most part of that. If you have any questions about that part, let me know. The last point here of the presentation, and I'll just have a few quick questions, is like knowing how and when to pick your team. So the most important person that you would work with in the beginning is a booking agent. That's usually the first person that you need to work with. And how I did it back in my day was I literally made a list of all my favorite artists, and then I looked through them, their websites, and found their booking agents, and I literally just cold emailed them. Didn't get that much response. I did get a few responses, and but what I did find is that the responses I got, they kind of, even if they weren't ready to take me on right now, they were like, oh, they were happy to connect, or they would do a small, short phone call with you. I think if you can get FaceTime, amazing. If you're in the same city, ask them to just grab a coffee. Otherwise, ask them to jump on a call, maybe before you've even said what you want. Or lastly, email only is kind of the third and least impactful way. But if you've got no other option, still throw it out there, I would say don't be too annoying in the chase ups. So don't chase people up 2-3 times a week, give it proper space, because these people are really busy and they have a lot of people knocking on their door. So if you can respect their time, that might also make them kind of want to come around to you. Yeah, so build and establish your connections is really important. Go out and about to events that you like and try and meet people, introduce yourself, ask to email them your demos, or it really is a people business, and it's all because we love music is why we're here, and sometimes you need to go out and get those next opportunities. Just to finish on the team structure, it's usually the agent first, and then when you have a good release lines up, it's important to get good PR and marketing around that release. And then usually the management comes after you're, a bit established and everything is working. I don't think you need management right from day one, because management comes in when you are getting a bit busier, and then, because they're going to take 20% of your net income permanently. So you need to make sure that you actually need a manager at that point, and you really think they can push your career forward. And again, going out there to look for a manager, the same as how I said with the agent, making a list and contacting them and asking friends of friends and other artists. I think that's everything. I went through a lot of topics, so I hope that they were also in detail enough for you to get some good tips. And let me know if you've got any questions.
Just wanted to ask real quick about you said you work backwards, not with the loop, how can I imagine that?
So I think having the loop and building it out is working backwards. Okay. But I will put a kick in and then the bass, and kind of create my kick and bass, but then I arrange the full thing. The kick, so not arrange, but I will put it out to kind of 5 or 6 minutes, the length of the track. Then I'll add drums, and then I'll add a hook or synth. It's a bit strange maybe compared to other people.
Nice.
Yeah, cool.
Inspirational.
Yeah, there's no rules with this, and that really works for me. It allows me to produce really quickly. Yeah.
Thanks.
Can you maybe bring out a few stumbles in your career, what they actually were, maybe with people, and how did you deal with those moments, and how did you overcome those moments, musically also?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind. There's been many stumbles in my career, and that's what is so hard about the music industry. You'll get a lot of rejection. I mean, unless you're extremely lucky, I guess. I've had 10 times more no's than I've had yeses. One of my recent stumbles or like slips was losing my US agent. I had a really good agent at the Bullet agency, pretty much Ryan, who's like probably the best agent in the US in my opinion. And him and his wife had another baby and they had to kind of thin down their roster. And I was like really gutted because it's really hard to get a good US agent because everyone from the world wants to go there and tour because it's a really good market. It's a huge territory and there's a lot you can do. And it's been really hard for me to get another agent. So, but instead of thinking, you know, I'm never going to get a good US agent again, it's just like, yeah, okay, that's just something I have to deal with. Like, I'm going to have to find a new one. But, you know, just having that kind of belief in yourself that everything will turn out helps. And also, I've got so many no's from demos, from labels that I've loved for my whole career. I've actually got about 5 favorite labels, and for the last 5 years I've been sending them stuff and they've still said no until, and this is an inspirational point, this year I finally got yeses from most of my favorite labels, and from now until next year I'm going to be able to finally release on those labels. So, you know, when you get those no's, I must have sent some people, and I'm not going to give away too much because you'll know what I've got coming up, but I must have sent certain people like maybe more than 50 demos, and that's just like, you have to be consistent. And they said to me like, wow, Rebecca, it's been 7 years and this music is amazing and finally you've got yourself on our label. And then it's like, wow, okay, fine. I kind of did, you know, I went through all of that, didn't know if I would ever achieve it, but you do when you just don't stop, like if you don't give up. Yeah.
But in that instant, do you send to a specific person you already know, or add a demo email or something like that? Does that actually work nowadays, like a demo email for a label?
Demo emails can work, and I have done it to demo emails before. But if I send to a demo email, then I'm working in the background trying to find who it's been sent to, you know, like... I think connections are really important. So if you've sent something to a label, go to their events and just try and connect with the organizers or the DJs, or, you know, because if that's where you want to go, you need to be present. And if you do, you can send something to a demo address, but then do the work to find out who's there behind those decisions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So when you keep sending these demos to your labels and your contacts, they're open to keep receiving your music, or is it, because I've heard some rumors that some labels or certain people will kind of blacklist artists, like, hey, this person's music is not good and let's just not waste our time listening to it. But it sounds like at least the people you've connected with have been open to your growth as an artist and to keep listening as you keep sending them. And it sounds like there's a respectful kind of relationship there where you keep paying attention to each other. And how do you create that?
So that's a really nice question, and it makes me feel kind of, happy as well that that's how people have still given me that chance. I think the key there comes to actually working on that connection. So whoever you're sending music to, if they can see that you're so passionate and you will do whatever it takes to finally get that demo that they will finally say yes to, they love that. Like, you know, great producers weren't born in a year. Making music really takes a lot of time, and these people that are maybe older than all of us and have been in the game for 20 years, they know that a good producer takes a good few years to make. And if they see you're really keen and you're just polite, you know, you take the no with respect, sometimes you can ask like, oh, you know, can I just start, if you have a moment, don't worry if not, but can I just ask like for a tiny bit of feedback why you don't like it or whatever? They'll sometimes give you a bit of feedback and then you can go away and work on that. But what I think is important is not bombarding them the next day or the next week. Like, give it some space, like at least a month, and then, you know, say, oh, okay, I just made this new track, but always be very positive, you know, very respectful of yourself and very easygoing. Like, hey, you might like this. If you don't, like, no pressure. And yeah, then you can kind of capture people that way.
Thank you.
That's right. Okay, I think we might be done. If not, if anyone else has a question, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yes. There was also a lot. First, thank you for all, and congrats that the labels took you this time. There was also an important topic in these days, like social media, and I feel like there's a bit, the difference also between underground and more commercial music. How do you feel it? Because not everybody is like consistent in social media.
Mm-hmm.
Would you pay for it or not? And do you think it's really that important to be seen by a label, because there are many watching this as well?
I think that's a really controversial topic right now. I do think social media is important. I think, if you ask my honest opinion, there's a bit of a divide right now in like the very hyped social media world, which is great. Like, these people, those artists are successful as well, but there's also a load of artists that maybe don't have a big social media following, but they're booked for different kinds of events. It's kind of a little bit of a separate world, if is how I see it.
Yes.
But I think no matter which side you're in, social media is still important, that you're putting out regular content. I would say, aim for at least 2 times a week where you can share something, even if it's something personal, because everyone's on social media these days. And if you want to build a fan base, it's good to just keep you in their minds. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Okay. All right, I think that's it then. Thank you for being here with me today.